Hello and welcome to So VT Book Talk. I'm your host, Caren Simpson McVicker, and today I am joined by Jess Hunsicker, who is the events coordinator at Northshire Bookstore. Hi, Jess.
Hi, Caren.
It's nice to see you.
So nice to see
How's your summer going?
Excellent.
I know, me too. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, today I am thrilled to welcome our author guest, who is Louella Bryant. And Louella holds an MFA in writing from the Vermont College and a master's degree from George Washington University. After publishing 2 young adult historical fiction novels, Bryant taught for a dozen years in the graduate writing program at Spalding University in Louisville, Kentucky. Her other books are While in Darkness, There is Light, which is a Vietnam-era biography, Cowboy Code, which is a World War II novel set in Southwest Virginia, Hot Springs and Moonshine Liquor, a memoir, and the historical novel Beside the Long River. She has also published a collection of short stories and numerous essays, poems, and articles appearing in anthologies and literary magazines. Her latest novel, Sheltering Angel, is a true story of the Titanic and has been at the top of the biographical fiction charts since its release last July. And I understand now in talking with her, she's already got another book out. So welcome to the show, Louella. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, I adored Sheltering Angel. I read it in like one sitting on an airplane. It was just riveting. And the character development I really felt like I got to know these people. So there's an author's note at the end of the book that talks about how you first became aware of this story, because it is a true story. And I'd love for you to share with us sort of how you found this story and went about that research.
Okay. It's interesting that a lot of my books take place in Southwest Virginia because that's where my parents are from. My husband is kind of Boston, Harvard, Northern New England kind of guy. And since I've known him, we've been married for 35 years. I've heard his mother talk about her grandmother, Florence Cummings, who was on the Titanic. Mm-hmm. And when the Titanic went down, her husband was, of course, aboard ship because only women and children were allowed into the lifeboats. And she was in the lifeboat and she saw someone swimming toward her. And she recognized her steward. They were in first class. And she pulled her steward into the lifeboat and saved his life. And I said, that should be a book. Mm-hmm. So I started writing it first as a YA book, and that didn't feel right. And then I wrote it completely from the steward's point of view because I was able to find a lot of information about him. And then my writing group said, well, we want to know about Florence. So I had to go back and talk to my mother-in-law and find out more about Florence and do some more research about her background. And then I integrated the 2 voices. So in the book, half of it is from the steward's point of view, and half of it is from Florence's first class point of view, which I think makes sense because, I'm from more of a working class background. My husband's more of a first class background. So I feel like there's a little bit of both of us in this book, and it seems to work.
Oh, it definitely works. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal read. So talk a little bit about, like you said, you were able to find more biographical information, on the steward. You've got some incredible details in there. What were the avenues you pursued to kind of find all of this incredible detail that you were able to pack into the novel? How did you track him down?
Actually, he spoke in the investigation trial after the sinking, and I got a book of transcript of that interrogation. And he actually spoke, and he spoke about Florence Cummings being his one of the passengers for whom he was responsible. So I knew there was a connection. And then I did some deep diving background into, he was a Scottish guy, and I discovered that his clan, his last name was Cunningham, and her husband's last name was Cummings. And I discovered that back in the early 13th century, they were, the two clans were allies. So there's sort of a supernatural quality in that there's a connection between the steward and Bradley Cummings. And they recognized that alliance during the course of the cruise on the Titanic. And then I went to Southampton, and the librarian at the library in Southampton said, I can find him. And she looked him up using her resources, and she found his application to be a steward. So I found out that he had a couple of tattoos. I found out how tall he was and how much he weighed, what town he was from, and I was able to do some research on that town. And then this particular library, which is right next to the Southampton Titanic Museum, had all kinds of books about the Titanic and the firemen and the people who worked, down in the furnaces. And the information just kept coming to me. It's really funny when an author writes a book. We start out kind of asking for information, and then I was just bombarded with the spirits of 1,500 people, all of whom wanted me to tell their story. And I had to push them away and say, no, I'm just telling the story of these two people. And it was very difficult to sort of, hold everybody else back. And they're still coming to me, so I'm not quite finished with the story yet.
Yeah, and so you mentioned something that you may be continuing with this story. Is that something in the works?
I'm working now on a sequel. Florence lost her husband, and then a few years later, when her middle son turned 18, World War I had broken out, and that was a completely different time. There was so much patriotism at that time, and everybody wanted to go fight the Nazis. And so the 18-year-old went into battle, and in his first battle, he was shot and killed. So she lost her middle son, and then she remarried, and her husband died of pneumonia. And then her oldest son died a few years later. So mostly the book is going to be about World War I, and both of her oldest son and her middle son were both in the military. And so it's going to be sort of epistolary in that there'll be letters, and then it begins with Florence finding the letters and then reading them, and then her reaction to those.
Wow.
So I think it's a book that will write itself, because again, the research is just pouring in on World War I. I'm reading so much about it. It's fascinating.
It's fascinating.
This book took 8 years of research to write.
I was going to ask that.
So I got deeply into Titanic, which is pretty deep under the ocean.
Yes. Oh, and I understand you have a new book that just came out. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is actually a second edition of While in Darkness, There is Light. And it's a story, I think of it as a coming-of-age story. It's about a group of young men who dropped out of college when they were 20 in the early 1970s and went to Australia to establish what they considered their ideal society. One of the men was Howard Dean's younger brother. Howard Dean, if you remember, ran for president of the U.S. And Charlie made a couple of wrong moves and ended up in a tragic situation. So I won't go into that too much.
Okay.
And then I have another book coming out in February, which is about, it's a little rock'em sock'em kind of quick read novel about the most notorious female moonshine driver, excuse me, in the history of Prohibition. So there's a lot of hard drinking, fast driving,
all right,
some gunfire, and some music of that period.
Well, this is amazing. You're so prolific right now.
I know.
Congratulations.
I don't know.
What's bringing this all on?
I have this amazing young publisher in Texas. It's a small press in Texas. And every time I finish a book, he says, "Do you have another one?" So I have to keep them coming.
That's great.
So I don't know how I can keep up this pace. But
Wow. Congratulations. We're just thrilled to have you on the show and sharing with everyone. And do you have a website where people could go and learn more about you?
Absolutely,
Because we can put up a little graphic on that.
It's LouellaBryant.com.
Okay, LouellaBryant.com. And hopefully you can stick around. Our next segment, Jess and I usually talk about what we've been reading. We do a little segment called Last Now Next. So we'd love for you to participate. Jess, you want to take us out?
Sure thing.
Okay. What have you been reading?
So this little pile of books that I have before me right now might be like not just like 3 of my favorite books of the year, but maybe like 3 of my favorite books of all time.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been very happy lately. First, I have Nicked by M.T. Anderson. Now, this is Anderson's foray into adult fiction, but previously he has written some YA novels, one of which, Feed, has been pretty amazing, well received and best-selling, and now I want to go read it. But this book is something else. It's funny in like a very like witty way. It's about 2 men who together kind of unwittingly are joined on this journey that they're sent on because one of them, Nicephorus, he has a dream. The year is a little ambiguous. I think it's like 11th century. He's a monk.
Yeah.
His town of Barry that he lives in has been racked by smallpox, and like everyone's dying. It's the plague. He has a dream that Saint Nicholas himself has some sort of vision for him. He tells all of his colleagues about this, and they assume that means they need to go and recover the body of Saint Nicholas, which is in a different city. It's interred somewhere else. So he has to, along with a treasure hunter, go and steal these remains. And this is something that really happened. It's like a real heist. So it's historical fiction. And it's just very like much in the style of like medieval storytelling, and it's beautiful. Like it's beautifully written. So I can like talk about this book enough. I'm so excited. And a little heads up for the events at Northshire coming up. This is going to be one of them, so I will be there. And then right now, I'm finishing up The Lost Boy of Santa Hionia, which is also just absolutely excellent. This is Juliet Graham's new book. She has written The 7 or 8 Deaths of Stella Fortuna, which I have not read, and now I'm going to read. This is also so fun. It takes place in southern Italy in the 1960s. An American who has Italian family, she speaks Italian fluently. She finds herself in this very isolated mountain village, Santa Hionia. And she's there to open a nursery school. There are like no roads, there's no doctor. They don't even really have a post office anymore after this very devastating flood has washed everything away. When that happened, a skeleton was unearthed and nobody knows who it belongs to. So she finds herself like the sole investigator into what happened. She ends up unraveling some very like long buried secrets. So it's really good. And she's also very funny. She has such a nice warm style. So I've been thoroughly enjoying that. And I also will admit I have cracked into this, but this is technically my next.
Okay.
This is Olga Tokarczuk's new forthcoming book, The Impusium, which she is like just a phenomenal author. She has a Nobel Prize in literature. She wrote the books of Jacob. She wrote Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. This is like, I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am for it. It takes place actually on the cusp of World War I in Germany at a sanatorium where a Polish man is going to have TB treated. So he's like in the mountains, he's there to take the waters, he's there for the air, and not everything is as it seems. Yeah. So there's kind of a little bit of a through line here, maybe a
Okay.
little bit of a morbid streak for
That's
whatever
all right.
reason.
That's okay.
But yes,
right.
he starts to uncover a mystery himself there.
That sounds amazing. Well, I did a ton of reading. I was just on a big trip, but that meant I read a lot of things on my e-reader, so I don't have the books here to show you. But I wanted to share three things that I read on my trip. One is The Editors by Stephen Harrison. So when my book Henderson House was published, it's because I won a contest with my publisher Inkshares, and Stephen Harrison was the other contest winner. So there were two winners. And so my book came out last August. His book is actually coming out August 13th, but it is a wonderful ride. It's sort of a techno thriller. It's sort of a fictitious Wikipedia style organization and about the volunteer editors of that organization. And there's a huge thriller thing happening around COVID and China trying to control the message on the internet, and this journalist who's sort of trying to break in, and how they're all trying to protect the information and misinformation on the internet. So it's called The Editors, but it was very fast moving. Really, like, I felt like it was like a roller coaster where you just felt yourself getting ka-chunk, ka-chunk, going higher and higher and higher. And then once you're at the top, it was like, whoa, like the whole thing. So that's The Editors by Stephen Harrison. I also read Camino Ghosts, which was the third installation in the Camino Island series by John Grisham, which was really interesting. Very, very different direction that he went in that one, actually telling a story about a lost slave ship. So there's a lot more about racial relations in that, and there's a little more courtroom drama, which we know Grisham loves. So that was a fun vacation read. And my last fun vacation read was Let's Pretend This Will Work by Maddie Dawson. And I loved Maddie Dawson wrote The Magic of Found Objects, which was just a really fun contemporary romance. But Let's Pretend This Will Work was so charming. I had a great heroine, complication after complication, but this whole scene with her moving in above this co-op daycare center, so great toddler characters in this book, but it was just a wonderful romance. So if you're looking for sort of a vacation-y beach read, I really, really enjoyed Let's Pretend This Will Work. But I have just broken into Shelterwood, Lisa Wingate's new novel, which is set in Oklahoma. So this was a must read for me. And again, she's dealing, again with issues about children at risk. And this has two time periods earlier in the 1900s and then a more contemporary character. And I've just started this, so I can't speak to it, but I'm already, she just makes you care about the people in her books so much. So really looking forward to finishing this. And I'm taking a look at my TBR pile. And this book was recommended to me, this Crossroads by Jonathan Franzen. And this came out in 2021. So many people recommended this book to me, and it's set in the 1970s. And I've just been looking at it. I'm like, okay, your time has come. So this is definitely next up for me. What are you reading, Louella?
It's interesting that when I'm between writing projects, I like to read something light.
Mm.
So I was recommended, I had been reading books that are set in bookstores, because that always fascinates me. I read the Little Paris Bookshop,
Yes,
which I just love that book. And then a bookstore owner recommended The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. And this is a cute little story about a bookstore owner. And one day he finds a baby somebody has left in one of the aisles of the bookstore. And he calls, social services.
What
and-
you do with that?
Yeah.
somebody, social services is going to take the baby away and put it in some sort of home. And he says, no, he is attached to this baby right away. So he raises the baby, and the story is very quick, but it takes place over 18 years as the
Wow.
baby grows up. But Gabrielle Zevin, is that how you say that? Is a name dropper, and I love name droppers. And so you'll find names of probably authors that you're very familiar with.
Oh, that's
there was
fun.
one that I wasn't familiar with. Some are classical and some are contemporary. And then he starts each chapter with a little bit about that author. So that was kind of a fun read, a little implausible, but fun. And then I went to the library, rode my bicycle to the local library in Lincoln, where I live, and I told the librarian I needed some books on World War One, and she loaded up my backpack with 5 heavy books about World War One. I barely made it up the hill home. So I've read all those, and then a friend recently gave me Ram Dass and Mirabai Bush's book, Walking Each Other Home, which gives me a little philosophical understanding of death. And since the sequel is mostly about death, I'm trying to find a way to uplift it. But if you know anything about World War One, you know that there was so much death in that story. My husband jokes that every book I write, I kill more people off. And I said, this was only 1500.
Yeah.
Wait until you read the World War One book. But I don't know if you guys know about Ram Dass, but he did a lot of experimentation in psychedelics, and he met a lot of people while he was tripping, and so obviously bookmarking, sort of earmarking some things I want to
Fascinating.
take note of as I'm writing about Florence's experience reading these letters from her sons.
Excellent. Wow, Louella, it's been such a joy to have you on the show. Thanks so much for driving down to be with us.
That was a really beautiful drive down.
Oh, great. Well, thanks again. And next up will be events with Paige and Jess. And now we are joined by Paige Vignola, the Assistant Director of the Manchester Community Library. And Paige and Jess are going to bring us up to speed on some events happening in the area this coming month. Hi, guys.
Hi. Thanks for having me back.
You want to go ahead and lead off?
Sure. So this month has been the Summer of Adventure for us at the library. It's the theme for the summer reading program. The adventure begins at your library. So I guess we're going with the adventure continues at your library for the month of August. On Thursday, August 1st from 6 to 7th, we have New York Times bestselling author Michael Tugias, who's going to be doing talking about his book Extreme Survival, which chronicles the harrowing survival stories and then discusses lessons learned from these experiences. So that should be fascinating. For the kiddos, on Saturday, the 3rd, from 11 to 12:30, we have the Reptile Nook coming in, and they're going to be bringing, it's like touch tank kind of stuff. We've got lizards from, I think, 4 different continents are going to be represented. So kiddos, come on in. Well, not just kiddos. If you're an adult and you like reptiles, it is the place to be at that time. We are starting up for the month of August, Monday evenings, calling it Sync Up with Sue. If you want to learn line dancing, the library is the place to be. So Monday nights in August from 5:45 until 7 p.m. So it's actually after the library is closed officially. We will have line dancing classes we had swing dancing classes for the month of July. So again, the adventure continues. Saturday, August 10th, I think is going to be something that is of interest, particularly to people who watch this show. We have mystery making, which is, pay attention, mystery lovers, right? It's an interactive workshop with 4 mystery authors representing different subgenres, and they're going to be brainstorming on their feet and creating a brand new mystery with the suggestions from the audience. So basically, we're talking mystery improv, and that's going to be August 10th from 11 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. It's going to be fascinating. I can't wait to see how that one plays out. We have 3 concerts that are taking place in the month of August. So we've got our summer music series with the Andres Berry Band. And everybody, obviously, from the North Shire knows Andres and knows what a fantastic musician he is. But you should also know that that evening on the 10th, it's a fundraiser for the fire department. So the fire department is going to be on site. They're going to be doing burgers and dogs and raising money for whatever their needs are that are not covered by their usual source of income. The 17th of August, we are going to be having our end of summer wrap party. And I know nobody wants to say goodbye to the summer, but it has to happen. But we'll be doing games and music and prize giveaways for kiddos and adults who have been doing their summer reading, logging their hours or their minutes. So come on by for fun for that. We are doing a second Red Cross blood drive. So we did one in July, and we're doing a second one in August, and that's going to be on August 22nd. It's all day from 10:30 in the morning until 3 p.m. So if you are eligible to give blood, please do so. The blood you give could be saving the life of a neighbor or a friend or a colleague. And then the two other concerts that I alluded to earlier, we have August 24th, which is If You Must Know, and this is Celtic music. So if you want to sit outside under the tent and listen to a harp and a bagpipe and other stringed instruments, they played for us last year and they were phenomenal.
Okay.
Phenomenal. So that's August 24th from 5 to 7. And then the last concert for the summer, we have the Bennington Traditional Jazz Band, and they are always phenomenal. It's a bopping good time. I don't know how else to say it other than that. So
Well, and Jess, why don't you bring us up to speed on what's happening down the road at Northshire Bookstore?
Yes, we have a lot of really fun events coming up at the store. Of course, the first one that we're kicking off the summer with is Nick M.T. Anderson will be joining us to share that book with us. That will be Friday, August 2nd at 6 p.m. And then the following day, Saturday the 3rd at 11 a.m., we're having a dinosaur party. There's going to be a scavenger hunt and crafts and activities and a story time, so that's going to be very fun. On Friday, August 9th at 6 p.m., we have another really cool one coming up. Peter Gregg is going to join us and talk about his book, The Sugar Rush, which has just come out. He runs a 1,000 tap sugaring operation in Rupert and has this book all about his story, how he got into this. And one of his best friends is kind of interwoven throughout the story, so it's funny.
sounds fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really cool. I want to learn everything about sugaring, so that's going to be really cool. The following day, on Saturday the 10th, Sarah Stewart Taylor and Carol Goodman will be joining us. We're going to talk about Sarah's new book, Agony Hill. She's acclaimed, a Vermont author. This is her first novel in a new historical series that's set right here in rural Vermont, set in the 1960s. It's full of New England atmosphere, and her characters are always so deep, and it has all of her classic trademarks, so that's going to be cool. On August 17th at 6 p.m., Peter Heller will be joining us to talk about his book, Burn, and Joe Donahue will be there as well, interviewing him, so that's going to be really special. Tickets are required for that one, but you can learn more on the website, of course. On Sunday, August 18th at 2 p.m., Angela Burke-Kunkel will be joining us to talk about World More Beautiful, which is a picture book that she has, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. So that's going to be a nice little story time with the author. On Saturday, August 24th at 6 p.m., David Sanger will be joining us to talk about New Cold Wars. So, of course, he's a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, and he has a book out called The Perfect Weapon that is best-selling. And so this is his new kind of political historical release. It's going to be really good. On Sunday, August 25th, we're doing kind of our final story time of the summer. We're wrapping it up with a Richard Scarry story time. So that's going to be so cute. That's going to be 2 p.m. And then the end of the month, we're going out with a bang. Mandy Naglich has a book out called How to Taste. She is a professional taster. So she's going to come to the store on the 31st at 6 p.m. and we're going to do a chocolate tasting in collaboration with Mother Myricks.
Oh, that sounds
Are there
great.
tickets for that one too?
Yes, there are tickets for that one.
Yeah.
It's going to be so fun. I cannot
Definitely
wait.
a sweet ending
Right.
to the summer there.
Definitely.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, that is a serious list of things going on. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Wow, and between both of you, so there's so much happening here in the Northshire area, and we hope everyone will take advantage of it. And I wanted to let everyone know that SoVT Book Talk now has our own email address. So there's a chance for you to communicate with us. You can send us your questions, book recommendations, and also let us know if you know of an author in Southern Vermont that you'd like to see as a guest on the show. So you can reach us at sovtbooktalk@gnat-tv.org, and we'd love to hear from you. Until then, happy reading.